Well, I hope that tonight you already are talking to people. Maybe you've already met someone. I am so eager on your behalf for what you guys have in store in the coming weeks and months as a church community, even for those who are maybe visiting or checking this place out, that it might be a place where you would find a new friend and nurture the friendships that you have and just do life together, right? Because it's worth it being in like a little bit of a hot room because we're here and we're together, and that is such a good thing. I want to just jump right in because we have lots to talk about, and I want to do that by telling you about something from a few years back. About 7 or 8 years ago, some of you may remember a movie that came out called Inside Out. We've got a picture of the cast. I don't know if any of you saw this, but this was a Pixar film about a young girl named Riley who was kind of going into puberty, and these were the characters inside her head. And so part of the film, you would see these characters all interacting with each other, and then you would see how it played out in this young girl. And so you've got anger there on the far left, and you have disgust, and you have sadness and fear, and then you have joy. And you can tell her, she's the one in the middle like this. That is joy. And we've got more of a close-up picture to see joy as well. So there she is, right? Now, before I went and saw this, but it was out, I had a number of people that I know, friends of mine, who went and saw it, and then they would reach out to me and be like, I don't know if you saw that movie, but there is this character, Joy, and she totally reminds me of you. And I was like, okay. And one of them actually was like, were you the voice of Joy? And I'm like, yeah, because I was in a Pixar film and I didn't tell anybody because, you know, why? So I was super excited to see it. And in fact, another one of my friends on Facebook, they posted this side by side. We're going to put it up here. And they had a whole thing about how I was like Joy. So as you can imagine, like when I was going to the movie, I was really excited about how amazing Joy was going to be and getting to see, you know, this all come to fruition in my life. So we go see the movie. It's my husband and our 2 kids. And like I said, it was 7 or 8 years ago, so they were younger, obviously. So on the way home, I'm in the front seat of the minivan because when you're little, you have to drive a minivan. And I turn around and I'm like, so you guys, did Joy remind you of anyone? And they're both like, no. Who? Grandma? And I'm like, no, you guys, me. I'm Joy right here. Don't you know? And then like that's when it hit me, like this joyful thing that apparently everyone else sees. My own children, they don't always see that side. We won't make you confess if that is also true of your home. But I did not remind them of Joy, and so it was like a real put down, really, a little reality check there. But what I thought or what other people saw was not exactly what people saw at home. In the movie, we get to hear all these conversations with these different emotions that go on in her head, and then we see her getting influenced by the things that are going on inside. And I was thinking about that, and it's kind of a fascinating concept if you think about this opportunity to see inside yourself, to explain some of what is coming out of you, right? To hear the voices in your head, so to speak. In fact, I remember on our way there, my younger daughter was 7 at the time, and she knew what the movie was about. She got the general concept, and she said, I can't wait to meet all the voices in my head. I was like, okay, we're going to just let that one go, but all right. But if you think about it, if you stop and think about that, I think maybe we all would do well to meet some of the voices in our head, right? And have a better understanding of what in the world is going on in here. And so tonight, what we're going to talk about, I want to give you something that is pretty measurable, pretty tangible, a tool that you can use every day to better understand what's going on in here so that you can better understand and notice and maybe change what is going on out there, what other people see, what other people experience when they experience you. Really quick, I want you to look around and make eye contact with like a few other women here. These are the people in your life. Some of you are very close to each other. Some of you maybe just know a few people, but these are the women that get what's coming out of you, right? And so this is the community that is going to be impacted when you're getting a better sense of what's going on inside. And we get that, right? We know that words affect people around us, but sometimes what we forget to recognize is that they're very closely tied to what's going on inside of us, spiritually speaking. Our words profoundly influence how we are doing, what's going on with us spiritually. And until recently, I never really thought about words that way. I mean, I know that words are powerful. I know they can hurt people. I know they can uplift people, but I never really thought of them as being a way for me to better understand what's going on with me spiritually. And when I say spiritually, I know that we all maybe are here with different experiences of what faith may look like, of what we may think of as being spiritual or our spiritual lives. But whether you're a Jesus follower or not, I think you'd recognize that there is something spiritual in our lives that happens. It's this idea of being connected to something bigger than ourselves. It's a sense of finding purpose. It's feeling loved and being able to express that love. And it encompasses our emotions as well. All of this is the spiritual part of it. And what I'm saying is what comes out of our mouths, what we say, it gives us insight about what's going on inside. One author puts it like this, I'm kind of paraphrasing. Words serve as tiny windows, allowing us to see what's going on at the center of our being. And in fact, Jesus says this very thing. We're going to start in Matthew 15. In a moment, we'll have it up on the screen, but I know sometimes you like to follow along if you brought your phone or your Bible, and if not, that's cool too, because we're just here in a room reading a screen. But what's happening in Matthew 15 is that Jesus is talking to some people who were criticizing his followers because they were breaking some of the cleanliness rules that they had in their Jewish culture. In particular, the cleaning that you would need to do before you ate. And Jesus goes into this whole thing about how eating bread and not washing your hands is not going to make you unclean. And he talks about how that's kind of what their standard is. But then he does what we often see him doing, which is he does like a little switcheroo, right? He says, you have always thought this, but now I'm going to tell you this. And this is what he says in Matthew 15, verse 17. We'll have it up here on the slide. Don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body, but the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. He says, I'm not so concerned with what's going in your mouth, which is great for us. To me, that's like biblical proof that we can have all the cake we want. Jesus is not so concerned with what's going in our mouth as he is what's coming out of it, because the words that come out of your mouth show the condition of your heart. Now we're going to jump over to Luke 6. This is the verse that Karen read. And in case you think that this might be a one-off, like Jesus kind of mentioned this and maybe it wasn't that big of a deal, he actually talks about it again another time. He says the same kind of thing in Luke 6:45. We'll go to that slide. A good woman brings good things out of the good stored up in her heart, and an evil woman brings evil out of the evil stored up in her heart, for the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Let's say that last line together on for the mouth. Ready? For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So if you have ever wondered what you're full of, because you're full of something, listen to the words that come out, because that your mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And we see this in ourselves, right? This aligns with what we know to be true. If I am in a bad mood, if I am frustrated about something, I'm going to be short and snippy in my words, even if the person I'm talking to has nothing to do with why I'm in a mood, right? If I'm in a place where I feel jealous of someone or judgmental, I am going to have critical words come out of my mouth, because what is going on inside of us makes its way out through our words, okay? I've noticed this when I'm driving. I don't know if you guys have this. I have like an out loud dialogue, like yelling at all the idiots around me. And I do it based on what they're driving. I call them what they're driving. So I'll be like, hey, Chevy, you're not a compact. Why are you in that spot? You know, stuff like that. Or I'm like, hey, Tesla, we know you can go faster. Let's get it going. Does anybody else do this? Tell me that you do. Please tell me that you do. You're probably nicer than me. But I remember one time I was going to like a Pete's or something like that, and I was in the left lane to turn left, and the Pete's was over here, and it was a no U-turn lane. And sure enough, Toyota in front of me, she makes a U-turn. And it says right there, no U-turn. And so I'm there, and I just watch her. Breaking the rules, Toyota breaking the rules. So I make my left like you're supposed to, and then I make the left in the parking lot, and then I weave through the parking lot, then I get in the spot, and then I get in line. Toyota's in front of me in line. Yeah. And I just was like fuming back there. I was like, no. So I have this monologue that goes on. See, words are a problem that I have. This is why I teach about words, so that I can learn better myself. But there's all this commentary that goes on. And truly for me, I have such a propensity toward sarcasm and a little dramatic. I know it's hard to imagine, but I know that this is happening in me. One time I decided that if I could not say anything nice, I was just not going to say anything at all. I think that's what we all learned in Bambi, right? And it was so quiet. And my friends were like, are you okay? Are you ill? What's going on? This did not work. But in reality, it is a little bit of a picture that it's a little scary to think how much easier it is to say all the junk as opposed to what is good and what is kind and what is fruitful and uplifting. And what Jesus is saying here is that how we talk, the way we talk, the words that come out of our mouth, they reveal what is going on in us. And I don't want to be someone that is a reflection of some of the words that I hear come out of my mouth. So my plan to just stop talking, it didn't really work because, see, I was tackling a symptom of the problem, not the actual problem. Let's look at that verse again. Can we put Luke 6:45 up again? And I'm just switching it to woman because we're women in here. A good woman brings good things out of the good stored up in her heart, and an evil woman brings evil out of the evil stored up in her heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. In other words, our mouth isn't really the problem. It's our heart. We can try to filter and edit and control our words all day long, but without really addressing the deeper issue of what is going on in our heart, what's going on inside of us, we're not really ever going to change. So we're wasting our time doing that. We've got to get to the deeper issue, the transformative level that the Spirit wants to come in and change us. See, what's happening is there is a back and forth struggle inside of us every day, every moment about who is going to be in charge. Will I be in charge, or will Jesus be in charge, right? And when we're in control, bad stuff eventually comes out, no matter how hard we try. But when Jesus is in control, good things, fruitful things come out. And what happens in these moments when I hear these kind of things come out of me is that I recognize, oh, that's because I'm in control right now instead of Jesus. And while that whole internal struggle may sound like it's an invisible, kind of unseeable thing because it's inside, but guess what? The words that come out make it clear to everyone around us who is in control at that given moment, right? Imagine there's like a driver's seat right in the middle of you. And most of your life, most of your spiritual life is a competition between who is in that driver's seat. Is it you or is it Jesus? I want to look, you don't have to turn there or anything. I want to look at another passage in Galatians. I think I have this one. Do I have Galatians 5? Let's hope. If I don't, I'm just going to read it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Galatians 5. I love Galatians because it is all about conflict and what it is to live in love with one another. So here's what it says. I'm going to read out of the New Living Translation. So I say, let the Holy Spirit guide your lives, and then you won't be doing what your sinful nature craves. The sinful nature wants to do evil, which is just the opposite of what the Spirit wants. And the Spirit gives us desires that are the opposite of what the sinful nature desires. And these two forces are what? Constantly fighting each other so that you are not free to carry out your good intentions. These verses, they talk about this struggle between our spirit and the Holy Spirit. Our sinful tendencies that want to take control, our tendencies towards sin, or God's Spirit who leads us toward goodness and wholeness and unity and love. And what these verses are talking about is a spiritual struggle. But like I said, we can't make the mistake of thinking that it is an invisible struggle. It's not an invisible struggle because people around you see it. It's not a flesh and blood kind of struggle, but it is a very visible struggle. It's easy to see in any given moment, am I in the driver's seat or is the Spirit in the driver's seat? And then our words show that same thing about us to everybody that those words are falling on. They're a gauge for us to see who's in control in any given moment. I'm always kind of shocked at like how quickly I can swing from one to the other. Do you guys have that happen where it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing good. I have all these loving words coming out, and then like one little thing happens, one little shift, which is me taking control, and suddenly a little bit of jealousy gets in there. A little bit of unkindness gets in there. A little bit of competition gets in there, right? And what we're recognizing is that when it is love coming out of us through our words, that is an indicator that Jesus is the one in control. And when we're the one in control, our words show that too. But here's the great news. Here's the great news about words being a gauge for us, a tiny window, like that one author said, for us to see what's going on, is that we also can hear the words coming out of our mouth, right? We can hear them, which means that if we just listen to ourselves, we will have such a poignant diagnostic tool for what is going on inside. I mean, where in your life do you get to pretty quickly and immediately have an internal assessment about what's going on, right? If we were to listen to what's coming out, we would know. I dare you to pay attention to what comes out and let it be a window into what's going on inside. It's pretty incredible if you think about it. It's really valuable if you think about it, right? Now, the great news with this, though, because we can't just stop there. That yes, there is a struggle that's going on. There's this back and forth. It's happening all the time. We recognize that. So that means that chances are in the next week, in the next day, maybe even in the next hour, there's going to be a struggle that happens. If Jesus is in your driver's seat right now, there's going to be a struggle that happens because that's kind of the back and forth. And our words show the struggle. And the competition is between our sinful tendencies and God's righteous desires in us. All right, so here's where we're at. We know that words are a window to see what's going on. We know that they are a gauge for us to see who's in the driver's seat, us or Jesus. But here's what we maybe will not recognize, and I want to point this out. Words are also a catalyst that actually change our heart. Words are so powerful that they themselves can change you. We read about it earlier in Matthew 15:18. I'll read it again. It's okay if we don't have it up there. Don't you see, this is Jesus talking, that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body, but the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. This is the power that our words have on us. These defile them. It's saying that our words have spiritual influence over us. They not only show how we're doing, but they determine how we're doing. And that's huge. It speaks to how powerful words are in our life to really create our reality, to create the experience that we are having of ourselves, of each other, and of God. So they do two things at once. They let us see who's in the driver's seat, and then they reinforce that driver, right? We see who's there, and we reinforce that driver. So when words are harsh or critical or judgmental, we see that we're in the driver's seat, and it becomes easier for us to stay in the driver's seat. Every one of those words that comes out. But when our words are kind and gentle and loving, we see it happening, that the Spirit is in control, and it is that much easier going forward for the Spirit to stay in control. Maybe you've heard this analogy before. Let's see if you can answer this riddle. There are two wolves who are always fighting, one that is dark and full of despair, and the other that is light and full of hope. The two wolves will always fight, but which one wins? Does anybody know? The one that you feed, right? It's that same idea. It's where you put more energy, more focus, is where it will get perpetuated and stronger. And our words, they always feed one side or the other. They're really never neutral. Our words are rarely neutral. And so it kind of leaves us with this question. Okay, so how do we control it then? How do we control our words? Because if we don't take power over them, what we're seeing here is that they will take power over us, and they do take power over us. So let's talk about that a little bit, because we can't just try to talk differently or try to talk better. We talked about how that's just the symptom. How do we really change our heart, transform the way that our words are coming out so it transforms the way that God has access to us to be transforming our souls? And what I want to do is kind of get really practical here for a second and talk about how can we make a change here. And I want to do that by thinking about two continuums. Now, for those of you that are like math nerds, you're going to love this. The rest of us that are confused by algebraic quadrants, we're just going to pretend it's two lines that are crossing over each other, okay? So we're going to think about a vertical line. I think we have it here. This vertical line, it represents this relationship between you and God. Okay, so we're going to think about that vertical line. This is my relationship with me and God. And all on that vertical line, there are two extremes. There is praise at the top, and there is complaint at the bottom. Praise and complaint. So let's talk about complaining for a second. Complaining is so easy for us. It is so natural for us. We're so good at it. In fact, I'm going to prove it to you right now. In just a moment, okay, I want you to like make eye contact with somebody next to you, because I'm going to have you talk to one other person. It's going to be really short. Just figure out who that's going to be. If you're near somebody and it has to be three of you, that's fine. You're grown-ups. You can figure it out. Okay. So one of you, here's what I'm going to have one of you do. I'm going to give you 8 seconds to do this. I want you, on the spur of the moment, to complain about where you live. Complain about your house or your apartment. Go. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you gotta stop. Okay. This is where you gotta stop. Okay, you're making my point for me here. You guys have a lot to say. Okay, now, that should have just been one of you talking, all right? Did anyone struggle to think of something in 8 seconds? It didn't seem like it. All right, we're going to switch. Now, the other person, this is your assignment. The other person, I'm going to give you 8 seconds, and you have to, off the top of your head, complain about something about this summer. Go. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you got to cut it off. Okay, so once again, by the amount of all your jabber, I'm gonna assert that it's easy to complain. Yeah, it's still going as everyone's fanning themselves. How many of you were either said it was too hot or it was too weirdly hot, then cold, then weird, and then what is happening? Yeah, okay, all right. So experiment was a success. I think we can all agree it is so easy to complain. But like we said earlier, you can't just edit your words. You can't just edit your words and decide you're going to, change everything. But here's the thing. When you chisel it down and you think about complaint, you can edit your complaint. Like, that's a thing you could do. You could make a choice. You could very intentionally try to hold back on your complaints. You ever tried that? It's very difficult. There would be a lot of us very quiet, like I was that one time. You don't have to voice a complaint. You can choose to keep it to yourself. And when you do that, when you push against that tendency to complain, it helps you raise up toward that side of praise. You see how there's a change that happens. And every time you do it, it reinforces that same driver, right? And it's going to push you up to that other side of praise. And let's try that really quick. Same pairs, whoever went first. I'm going to give you 8 seconds, and I want you to say something positive about where you live, your house, your apartment. Go. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you got to stop. Stop. Okay. Yeah? Everybody did it? You did it, you guys. Look at you. Okay, the other person, now you get a chance. You get to say something positive about the summer that we just had. Ready? Positive about the summer. Go. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you got to stop. Okay. So, was anyone unable to think of something? Was anyone unable to think of something? Okay, so what we just saw is you get to choose. You get to choose how you frame your words when you think about it really specifically like this. Will I look at the same thing and choose to complain? Because there's always something to complain about. We know that. We're so good at it, as we proved about 5 minutes ago. Or am I going to choose to praise? And again, every time we make that choice to praise, it perpetuates a spirit of praise in us. What if every morning, instead of starting the morning with, oh, my alarm's going off, oh, I got to get out of my warm bed. This is my morning, pretty much. Oh, I got whatever, all the things. What if instead you chose to praise, to thank God that you have a warm bed to sleep in, to pay attention to his attributes that you see in your life, to thank him for this new day that is ahead? What if you chose that? When you intentionally choose words of praise, you are realigning yourself with God's heart. You are making room in the driver's seat of your heart for the Spirit to reside there, to get comfortable there, to be the one who is usually sitting there. And it shifts your attention away from selfishness, away from all of the sin nature that it talks about in Galatians, and toward the loving nature, the Spirit-filled nature that is our potential. And that will automatically influence what comes out of your mouth. Do you see the difference there? You're making a choice, but you're reinforcing it so that pretty soon it's not going to be as much of a choice, yeah? Because you're going to get that spiritual muscle memory to change the way you praise and the way you complain. You edit your complaints, and you will have more praise in the day, and you will, through that, allow God to change the posture of your heart. I'm in a weird season right now. These last few weeks have been very difficult. As Karen mentioned, we are heading into, or I don't know if she did mention it, but the Lead Bold that I lead, we are heading into our annual conference in 15 days and 15 hours, not that anybody's counting. And a lot of pressure always comes with that. So that is kind of par for the course for me. So I know that this season is always going to be a little bit of extra pressure. On Monday, I got a call that one of our keynote speakers had to pull out. And then a few weeks earlier, I went down for a visit to my mom. She lives in Southern California, and I was going down for a 2-day visit. And about an hour after I got there, we had to call the paramedics. And she ended up being admitted to the hospital, having to have unplanned back surgery, getting a blood infection, getting on IV antibiotics, and then needing to go to a skilled nursing. And then once she was settled in there, last night had to go to the emergency room. This is all in Southern California. So there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of things that feel burdensome to me. Not saying like helping care for my mom is burdensome, but you know what I mean, right? And as people have been asking me how I'm doing and how it's going and how are you doing holding all of this, what I'm finding myself doing is being able to be honest and say that it is hard and that it does feel like pressure, but also being able to voice the places where I see God fill in the gap. And I see and I feel the sustaining grace that is the grace enough for today. And where there's this unexplainable sort of peace that is recognizing that it's going to be okay. When the speaker canceled on Monday at about 9 in the morning, by 4 o'clock that day, I was talking to another speaker that I didn't know anything about, but I got connected to her. And by the next morning, she had said yes, that she would fill in. Like, when does that happen? So just being able to recognize, not only recognize, but to verbalize the way I can praise that in the middle of all this going on that is very easy to complain about. And trust me, I've complained about it because family dynamics, But to be able to, in the middle of that, also take the chance to choose to praise. And every time I'm finding myself doing that, then every new pressure that comes on, I'm a little bit more able to see God a little quicker and to release a little sooner and to be able to praise a little bit more naturally, Something you should know about this vertical axis is that praise and complaint, even though it's kind of that vertical us and God, it doesn't necessarily mean that the praise and the complaint is always directed at God. I mean, just looking at it really practically, we may be praising a person or complaining about a person, and it kind of seems like, well, that's not about me and God. That's just me like complimenting my friend or complaining about something, but really it is about you and God. So even when your praise is going outward towards somebody, it really is a praise toward God. If you were complimenting a friend or getting to enjoy like watching some gift that your friend has and you compliment her, really you're like, oh God, that's so cool that you put this in my friend and I get to experience it. Yay, God, way to go. And every time we complain about something like our house or and I made you do that, so no judgment, but or about whatever, really we kind of are complaining about God, right? Like, God, you could have changed this for me. You could have fixed that. You could have prevented that. If I believe in your power, then I also have to acknowledge that you at some point did not show up in the way that I wanted you to. So it's very much a vertical us and God, even when our words and our intentions are directed outward. So whether you praise or complain, whether to God or other people, those words that you say, they affect how we are spiritually, right? Well, we're going to move on and we're going to look at the other one real quick. We just have a little bit of time left. And this horizontal axis, it really does, that is the one about each other. That is the one that is about us and the people that we are in community with. So on the one side is encouragement. So this is every uplifting thing and positive and affirming thing you say. And then on the other side is criticism. This is the tearing down. This is the negative. This is the words that do not affirm, right? And when we talk about the power of words in each other's life, these are kind of the big continuum, the two extremes. It is encouragement and affirmation, or it is criticism. And as we speak to the people in our lives, the same thing is happening where we're perpetuating whatever it is that we allow to happen. We continue to perpetuate it. So sticking to the driver's seat analogy that we were talking about, the more you do one or the other, the more that will stay in the driver's seat. So the more you criticize, the easier it is for you, flesh, sin nature, to stay in your driver's seat. The more you encourage and uplift, that's showing that the Spirit is in the driver's seat, and then it's easier for the Spirit to stay there. Listen to Ephesians 4:29. Let everything you say be good and helpful. Let everything you say be good and helpful so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. That's a high order. Because remember, whatever is inside of us is going to make its way out in our words. And our words are falling on everyone around us, and they are impacting us spiritually, and they're impacting them spiritually. Max Lucado writes about a time that he was in a half marathon, and he had done, or I guess it was like an Ironman, that's what it was. And so he had done like the swimming and the biking, and he was on to the running, and it was the last leg. And I'm not a runner, but I imagine, and I've been told, like by the end, you're done, right? You are barely making it. So here he is trying to push himself toward that finish line, and along beside him comes this young guy, and Max makes the mistake of asking him how he's doing. And this guy just goes into all these complaints like, oh, it's so hot out here. I can't believe I signed up for this. This is terrible. And while this guy's words are coming out, landing on Max, Max can literally feel himself losing energy. Like he can feel that life getting sucked out of him as that happens. And somehow he kind of musters enough energy to like get ahead of the guy so he doesn't have to be next to him anymore. And then a little bit later, he comes alongside a grandma. He found out later she was like 66 years old. She was a grandma. She's running this thing. And she says all kinds of different things to him. She says, oh, keep it up. You're doing great. Isn't this a beautiful day? Stay hydrated. You're doing so good. Like all these things. And he could physically feel himself getting energized. That is the power of words on people all around us. We look at these two exchanges that are so different, and we see how much words that just seem to come out and not do anything, but how much they affect those around us, because we saw what happened in him. A cycle of praise that perpetuates goodness, a cycle of encouragement and a cycle of criticism. And now I get that situation was kind of extreme. Like that's an extreme. You're very depleted. Like you don't have a lot left. That's pretty extreme. But if you think about it, like we are often under an immense amount of stress. Every one of us can look back even to the last 7 days and be able to name a time where it felt extreme. We were extremely tired. We were extremely discouraged. We were extremely spent, right? We were extremely mad, whatever it is. So how much more important is it for us to be practiced in having the Spirit in the driver's seat so that when the times come that are a pressure cooker, we are more likely to keep the Spirit where the Spirit should be. We push toward praise. Every time we push toward praise instead of complaint, we reinforce it. Every time we push toward encouragement instead of criticism, we reinforce it. And so how much easier will it be for us to walk in the Spirit and get to experience the full life that God has for us? I want to ask you as we close to think about a few things when it comes to words. My first challenge is would you consider listening to the words that come out of your mouth? Would you maybe for 24 hours or a couple of days, maybe write them down, maybe pay attention. What are the words coming out of your mouth, and what are they telling you about your heart? And maybe think of a situation where it is very, very easy for you to complain, where that is your muscle memory right now, is complaining. And maybe just in that one area or that one relationship or that one situation, what if you choose, just do a little experiment, what if you choose for a week, say, that you will not utter a complaint about your husband? I mean, about whatever it is. Like, how would that change? And then pay attention to how it changes. And then same, like what is a person? Who's a person in your life that you tend to criticize, that it's just easier to criticize? What would it be for you to choose to encourage? Because like I said, the words are powerful. And just thinking about the words is really just the symptom. But when we can make choices about our words, it does change our heart. Our words, the things that flow out of us, those are what defile us, and those are what build us into the women that God is calling us to be. How are you maybe being held back by the influence that God has for you to make in his kingdom because of what's coming out of your mouth or what's not coming out of your mouth? What I want to do as we close is just have a little time where we can just on our own, just pray about this. And then I'll close us in prayer. But I want to give you a chance, and I'll give you some prompts to just spend a little bit of time letting this sink in a little bit. Not what I'm saying, but just what you hear the Spirit saying to you right now. Because so often we hear and we agree, and then we go off and have cookies, we forget all about it. So would you just bow your heads with me, close your eyes, just take your heart to a posture of listening, to a posture of connecting with Jesus. And just tell him right now what you are hearing from him in your life. Let me give you a moment to do that. And then maybe think about that situation in your life that is so easy to complain about. And bring that before God. Confess if you need to. And then think about that person in your life that is just easier to criticize than to encourage. Ask God to help you. Make an intention toward God that you will choose encouragement in this relationship. God, our desire is to align ourselves with you, with who you are in our lives, with who you are in this world. God, forgive us for minimizing the power of our words. And thank you that you use us with our words. God, that you would bring to mind right now the words that you have used in coming out of our own mouths to bless people and to point people to you and to help them have clarity about their lives and to encourage them. God, I am so thankful for the people in our lives that we have their ears, that they do hear us. That is such a privilege. God, our heart is to be a reflection of you, to let the words of our heart and the meditation of our minds and our hearts to align with you, to be pleasing to you, to be good fruit that comes out of our mouths. God, I pray that you would let us catch a glimpse of the transformation that only you can do as we submit our words to you. God, I pray for this community here that you would strengthen these women, that you would strengthen their bond, that you would allow forgiveness, that you would bring humility, that you would raise up their gifts, that you would have them be a light in this community. God, for that woman who is tired and it makes it hard to control what she says, God, I ask that you would fill her up, that you would energize her. For that woman who feels that she is too far gone to change, God, that you would let her see your strong ability to enter into her reality and change her toward you. God, we are so privileged to get to engage with you, our loving Savior. Thank you for this time. Thank you for speaking loudly. God, let us not go away without grabbing onto what you have for us tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.